All right, so it's beginning to look like we might not get an Armor Wars here in the MCU, and this information is coming from a recent interview here with Don Cheadle, and I gotta say that some of the answers here in this just makes it seem like we're probably not gonna be getting it. And then also, there was something else that mentioned how some of the plot beats here from the upcoming Armor Wars is now being repurposed to the upcoming Vision series instead. So let's dive into it, right? So this was the questions that were asked to Don Cheadle and his answers, and it says, any word on where Armor Wars stands right now? And his response was, listen, if you can find out and let me know, right? And then the next statement was, last I heard, it switched from being a TV series to a movie, but there have been no updates since. So his response to that was, yeah, I think the word that's the most salient in that sentence is switched. And then, of course, he laughs. He says, I don't know. I'm not sure where anything is right now. I think things are going through a lot of changes, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what it is. And then, of course, TV Line continues to ask a question here. Well, I sure hope it happens for you, because it will be sad if the last Rhodey that we spent meaningful time with was actually not Rhodey, referring, of course, to Secret Invasion, where he was pretty much a Skrull the entire time. And then the question was asked, what was your reaction when we were first told that you'd be playing a Skrull Rhodey for almost all of Secret Invasion? And then the response was, it wasn't a demand, it was a request. What do you think about playing this? And it was just to set up stuff in the following thing. So if the following thing happens and all those things were set up, then that's one thing. If, as you said, it doesn't, then we can talk about how I feel about it after. And to be honest with you here, and before we kind of dive into this next little article here, I just feel like Armor Wars never really fully made sense to me, right? Like from a comic book perspective, after pretty much basically like what happens with Armor Wars is that it happens after the Secret Wars comics. And it was basically about Iron Man tracking down people who stole his tech and were using it for the wrong reasons. But right now, Tony in the MCU is dead, unless they were going with the storyline, which I believe this is what was rumored, is that the storyline will be more focused on Tony's legacy. And I assume that that would kind of feature Rhodey, not as Iron Man, but kind of taking on the Iron Man sort of moniker in a way, not specifically holding that title, but basically to try to keep on that legacy, which makes a lot of sense. But here now in the comicbookmovie.com, this is what they're saying, is that Marvel Studios may be using many of Armor Wars plot beats for the upcoming Vision series. And then further on, what they're discussing and talking about here is as it pertains to like Ultron, right? Because we got some information here that Ultron is supposed to be in the Vision Quest series. And it was mentioned here that this rumor comes from the Cosmic Circus here, from Alex Perez, and it said that we imagine that he's referring to the Ultron's return and perhaps even the fallout from Damage Control acquiring Iron Man's technology during the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. So I think that based on that information, it is very clear to me that there's a potential chance that we may not even get an Armor Wars in the first place. And the thing about it is, like with Secret Invasion, at the very end of it, if they were to continue on with Armor Wars, what version of Rhodey are we really truthfully getting, right? Because at the very end of it, we saw where Gaia was taking him out of the fracking pod, and that was pretty much basically, he was still in the gurney. So we could assume that most likely it's after Civil War, which means that to bring him back now and to kind of like as a lead in Armor Wars, he never even had the interaction with Tony Stark, right? Because we got to assume that was Skrull Rhodey the entire time. So he technically hasn't, that it kind of diminishes that moment too when you think about it, right? Like it diminishes the moment of the fact that like they had that one-to-one moment when he was just about to die, but it wasn't even Rhodey in the first place. So once again, we don't know what version of Rhodey that we're going to be getting here. And it just kind of seems like they were sort of like MCU overall, they were kind of like greenlighting things a little bit too much here. And it will be disappointing if we don't get Armor Wars, but then we get something like Ironheart, right? Because let's be real, the whole legacy thing, if that's the direction that they were planning on going in still, it's kind of already been done already with Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, of course, those plans change because of what happened with the deal with Sony. So therefore they can't they can't really like hitch their wagon anymore to Tom Holland, although they have kind of seemed to be working together more fluidly and going in a different direction. But I doubt that they want to go down the road again of, hey, let's have Peter Parker still carry on that legacy here. So I don't know. This is a little bit disappointing to me, unless they decide to, okay, well, after Secret Wars, which potentially supposed to be a soft reboot here for the MCU, they decide to go in that direction, and then maybe they bring back a Tony Stark, not necessarily specifically Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark, but if they decide to, of course, because he's doomed now, right? But if they decide to go in a direction where they bring back a Tony Stark from another universe, then maybe they can go the road of doing Armor Wars. But right now, as it stands, a lot of this just sounds really messy. And with you repurposing stuff here from this series over to the upcoming Vision series, I just really don't see, with all of this stuff that we just talked about here, how Secret Wars, or Armor Wars, I should say, Armor Wars makes sense right now in the MCU. So listen, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Leave it down below in the comments here. Appreciate it. And as always, thank you so much for kicking it before the buzz. Bye.